right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Build with Glide. Hey, everybody. I'm Andy Claremont, the head of community here at Glide. And this is where we go behind the scenes on existing Glide apps and build new apps from scratch. And I am very excited to have Miguel here from Grumo Media joining us. Miguel does a bunch of stuff on YouTube about Glide and no code. He is a certified Glide expert, and I just don't know where else to go from there. Thank you for making this happen, Miguel. I know you're not in your usual setup today. So thank you for making this happen.
No problem. My pleasure.
So today we're going to be talking about building custom tools using OpenAI. And if you think about how there are lots of different tools and apps out there that use OpenAI under the hood, if you're not a developer, it's really hard to tap into the power of OpenAI at that level because it's all based on the APIs. So this is our third installment of the Build with Glide and AI series. Grumo is going to be showing us how to tap into those APIs using Glide and build some awesome OpenAI powered solutions. Now, before we get into that, though, I'd love to just give you a chance to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what got you into working with Glide.
So I found about Glide about 2-3 years ago. I was looking for a no-code tool to help me build my own apps, more as a hobby. And soon I discovered that you could build very compelling apps. And I've been posting stuff on YouTube for the last 10 years because I also have a explainer video company called Grumo Media. So that was kind of my portfolio channel. And also, like, I teach online on Udemy. I teach people how to teach online. I teach people how to create demo videos as well. And, 10 different, I have like about 10 different courses, right? And then after I started publishing some YouTube tutorials on how to use Glide with some of the apps that I was building. And soon people start requesting, hey, can you build an app for me? And what started to be kind of like a hobby and has become one of my main sources of income. And so I'm very grateful that Glide exists for that reason. Also because it's extremely fun to build Glide apps. I also have a background in development. I build many websites and apps using native code. And it's just the speed at what you can build apps with Glide is mind-blowing. And hopefully I can demonstrate that today. If you were trying to replicate this app or any Glide app with native code, it would take you considerably longer and it would be probably a lot more expensive. And thanks to Glide now, anybody, even if they're not a developer, they can build very compelling apps that can be used by companies, not just individuals for fun, but like actual real world big companies. And that's new and that's very exciting. So I'm so happy to share that knowledge with anybody that wants to join this no-code revolution or just building software and make it fun. So that's pretty much it.
I love that philosophy. That's the thing, right? Like, we're building tools for business, but it can still be a lot of fun. And I think that's one of the great things about Glide is that it really is fun to just start building things. So with that out of the way, let's jump into it. Miguel, I'm going to hand the controls over to you.
Okay.
It's all yours.
All right, let's do it. So the goal of this presentation is to build an app from scratch, and it's going to leverage OpenAI. And hopefully I can do it pretty fast. It's not going to be a complex app, but it will give you the fundamentals of what it takes to build an OpenAI-powered app in Glide and how fun and easy it is. And of course, that will be the beginning, and then you could take this and do all kinds of amazing things. But most OpenAI-powered apps on Glide are going to have these fundamentals that I'm going to show you. And the final app actually looks like this. And it's very straightforward. You can ask anything here, like if you were in ChatGPT, and you're going to get a series of results, and then you're going to be able to save the results individually. So we're going to not just integrate with OpenAI, we're going to parse the data that we get, manipulate that data so we can save it as independent items. So to show you what I mean, if we go to ChatGPT, which I'm sure most of you must be familiar by now with this interface, the interface is very, very plain. And what Glide allows us to do is build a beautiful mobile-friendly interface on top of OpenAI. And as a side note, I noticed that more than 90% of the requests I have to build apps nowadays want some integration with OpenAI. And Glide just happens to be one of the fastest tools to build OpenAI power tools. So I'm going to enter here a prompt. It's going to be, well, how to, well, let's say, give me 3 steps to become an amazing Glide apps developer. Okay, so now ChatGPT hopefully gives us 3 steps to become an amazing Glide apps developer. And it's going to take a little bit of time. And it's going to say, learn the fundamentals, practice building projects. So it makes all of it makes sense, right? And expand your knowledge. Great. So this is just a big blob of text, which is great. And I can do the same thing on my app, my demo app, right? I'm just going to copy here the actual prompt, right? Actually, in this case, I'm just going to type, I want to become a amazing Glide apps developer, right? And this is now a Glide app that is leveraging OpenAI, right? And I'm just going to click one of these 3 buttons. These 3 buttons are different ways to talk to AI, which I'm going to show you in a second, right? But let's say I just want to click on this one. It'll take a few seconds, and I should get some steps to become an amazing Glide apps developer. So there you go. We have 3 steps, and what is happening in the background is that we're connecting to OpenAI via their API. So we need an API key for that. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. And the other thing is that this big blob of text, right? It's actually being parsed into 3 different steps. Let me just go back here to the demo. And the great thing about this is that now I can independently save these steps, which in this case, I'm going to save them as a to-do list, as a task, right? So let me add this one, or add this one, right? And if I go to my tasks, now if I save these steps, of course, this could be any other prompt, like how to hire an amazing software developer, how to create an amazing marketing campaign or something like that, right? And then I can mark them as done, right? Or I can delete them. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. And we also can, this is the prompt that we're sending to OpenAI. We can also edit this. So this is like a bare bones basic app that leverages Glide's OpenAI integration. Great. Now, how do we build this? Well, let's build it, right? Let's start from scratch. So we got our Glide editor. We say new project, and I'm going to call this OpenAI demo, and continue, Glide tables, create project. All right, we wait a little bit, and this is going to generate a default app on Glide, and there we go. By default, Glide creates some tables which we can delete, right? So we're going to start from the very, very beginning. There's not going to be no tables at all, right? Okay, so now I'm going to even delete the default screens here. There you go. We have absolutely nothing. We're starting from scratch. The first thing we need to do to connect with OpenAI is to get an OpenAI API key. For that, you can go to platform.openai.com. Then you go to your account settings here, view API keys, create new secret key. I'm going to create it. I'm going to, let me just say, give it a name, like demo. create secret key. I'm going to copy this. All right. And I'm just going to go here to settings, integrations, and the OpenAI integration, I believe it comes on the free plan as well. So you can start already playing with this and building OpenAI powered apps with Glide on the free plan. So that's great. So definitely you can start replicating this, no problem. And let me just go to the OpenAI integration here. There you go, add. As you can see, there's a ton of integrations, and Glide keeps adding more and more integrations. So all I have to do now is, it's trying to save this. Let me just try this again. Okay, so I just copy and paste the API key. And in theory, we should already have an OpenAI powered app. Of course, there's nothing to be seen here now because we're going to build the interface, but the integration has already been done. So let's replicate the app that we built. And the first thing we're going to do is create one table, right? Just click here and we're going to create a new table. And we're going to call this table OpenAI. And this is where we're going to create the interface to prompt OpenAI and then to get the results. So I'm going to call this OpenAI. All right. And we're going to need a field where we're going to call it a prompt input. And it's going to be user specific because we only want the current user to have access to this input, right? So I'm going to save it. And then the output, whatever we get back from OpenAI, we're going to save on a different column. So I'm going to duplicate this column. And I'm going to call this OpenAI response. Okay, it's going to be a type column text. So with these two columns, we're already pretty much we can replicate what ChatGPT is doing, because we can go to layout and enter create a new screen from data. We can we're going to select OpenAI. We're going to delete the default component, and now we can start adding our interface components. So the first one is a place where we can enter the prompt. So that's going to be a text entry, right? Entry. Okay, and then now we have to map this to the right column inside the OpenAI table. So we go here to the right. So the left is where you add the components. The right is where you set the components properties. So in this case, for the input component, we're going to select the column input because that's where we want to save the input, right? And now for the output, we're just going to have a text component to show what comes from OpenAI. So let me add a text component here. And we're going to map this to the OpenAI response. Great. But now we need to tell Glide how do we, so if I enter something here, nothing is happening, right? So what I need to do is add a button, right? And we're going to add this button under the prompt input, right? And now this is where the magic happens, which I love about Glide, is we're going to create a custom action, which is once we select the button, we can go to the actions here and we can click here and show this drop-down menu and create new action. And then under actions, I'm going to say Open AI submit. Okay. And here we have a ton of different actions. So we can start searching for OpenAI. And there are several ways that you can use OpenAI to retrieve data via their API, their connection, their API connection. So you have complete prompt, answer question from a table, and send a message with or without history. So in this case, we're gonna say just answer a question. But one thing I recommend is that you're gonna get different results based on the option that you choose. So when you're building your own OpenAI powered app, I recommend to test the 3 different options, or as many several options as you want to, because the data you're going to get back is going to be slightly different. And some options have more configurations than others, right? So let's see if we have enough time to try the 3 different options, so then you can see how the results differ from one option to the other option. But in this case, I'm just going to say answer question. And the question is going to come from the prompt input, which is where we're going to type the text, where we're going to ask the question. And the answer that we get back from OpenAI is going to be saved on the OpenAI response. And believe it or not, we've already created our OpenAI Glide app. I don't know how long that took, but it's only a few minutes. So let me just type the same prompt as we did before. So list 3 steps to become a great Glide apps developer. And let's see if it works. Go. And hopefully we get 3 steps. Actually, we get 5 steps. But still, we get what we were looking for. Learn the basics of coding, language, familiarize yourself with the Glide platform. Actually, the first step doesn't make sense because you shouldn't have to learn any coding. Anyways, this is why I'm saying it's good to test different versions of the OpenAI connection. Anyways, what we get here is a response that it's the response that we're getting from OpenAI. It's basically like using ChatGPT, but now it has a beautiful interface. We can deploy this easily. We just hit publish, and then people can start joining. You can create users. You can manipulate the data any way you want to. This is what I mean. It's pretty fast to build OpenAI-powered apps with Glide. Now, the next step, what we're going to do is, which I found a lot of clients request, is sometimes they just don't want a big blob of text. They want to be able to save each result independently, either to create an action plan, tasks that they can check, or maybe they just want to save some of the results as favorites. So to do that, we have to do a little bit of data manipulation, which is very, very easy to do. Let's just do that right away, okay? And so the first thing we're going to do, and I do this all the time for this type of apps, is we're going to create a second table, and it's going to be called, you can call it anything. I call it results, right? Typically. And we're going to add, let's say, 5 rows, right? And the first row, we're going to call it result ID. And this is going to be a column of the type number with precision 1, no need of a group separator. And here we're going to add some values starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, and 4, right? And in a second, this is going to make sense. It's pretty straightforward. What we're trying to do is grab that result, that piece of text with X amount of results, and separate each result into an independent row, so then we can do whatever we want with those independent results. Again, this is something that is a very recurrent feature that is being requested by many of my clients. So I thought I would share it because it's really cool how it works. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is grab the result, the big result that we got from OpenAI, which is on this table. As you can see here, we have the prompt input, which was list 3 steps to become a great Glide apps developer. And the OpenAI response is here, right? We get these 5 steps. Now we want to convert each of those steps into the independent row. Okay, so how do we do that? Very simple. We just go to results. Now we're going to add a second column, which is going to be called OpenAI response. And we're going to grab the OpenAI response from the OpenAI table. And for that, we can use a a computed column of the type single value, which means we're going to grab a single value from a different table in this case, and we're going to grab the first value from the OpenAI table, and we're going to grab the OpenAI response. And as you can see, now we have the OpenAI response in each of the rows. But in order for us to be able to convert each of these results into an independent result, we need to do something else. We need to modify the prompt so Glide can understand how to convert this into independent rows. And many of you, hopefully, you're familiar with a format of sending data from website to website or from apps to apps, which is called JSON. And that simply means it's a way of structuring data so computers understand it. The good thing is you only have to learn this once, and you'll be able to use it a lot when you're transferring data from apps to apps, right? So in this case, I would need to add to the prompt a little bit of information so we get the results formatted in the way that we need to. Okay, so I'm just going to copy here the actual prompt. Okay, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so in this case, we have the original prompt, which is list 3 steps to become a great Glide Apps developer. And then this is the rest. In this case, we don't want to enumerate the tasks. This is up to you. If you want OpenAI to give you numbers, you can just leave it, remove that, and then only provide the code. We only need the actual list, nothing else. Sometimes ChatGPT adds some context to your requests, like it would say, you know, as an AI model, this is my opinion, or this is what I think, and then at the end, it gives you a little summary. You don't need that. In this case, you just want the actual list, nothing else. And then here is the important line. The response should contain only a JSON object with this schema. And the schema, it's just how JSON data is structured, which is very simple notation. In this case, we want 2 different things, the task and an explanation, which is optional, which is explaining what the task is. But I mean, for now, we can get rid of the explanation. We can add that later if you want to. You can add as many parameters as you want to, right? But this is enough for now. Okay, so if we click go, we should be able to get, let me change this instead of 2 steps to tasks. These 3 tasks to become a great apps developer. Let's try this again. Let's see what we get. We should get a JSON object. And in this case, it's correct. We have 3 results that we can parse into 3 different items. So I would say this is the only part that you could get a little bit confused about, but it's pretty straightforward. Once you know how to do this, you can do that many, 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 many times. And so the next thing we're going to do is, now that we have that result, we can go back to our table here, results. And we can see that we have here the OpenAI response in all the columns. And now we have to extract each result independently. And for that, we need another column, right? Which we're going to call, so in this case, we're just going to grab 1 parameter. So this parameter is going to be called task. And here you can do it 2 different ways. You can either use a fetch JSON computed column or a JavaScript column. From my experience, the JavaScript column is a lot faster, performs a lot better, but you could use the other one. Now, this is very simple code. So we can just use a JavaScript column. And what we're going to do is we need to grab 2 parameters. One is going to be the result ID, that's going to be mapped to the variable P1 and the response to P2. Let me just find it here. There you go. And then all we have, well, we only need 2 lines here, which we're going to use a native function in JavaScript, which is called JSON parts. And we're going to assign this to a variable called result. And what we're going to parse is the actual result, OpenAI JSON object, which is stored in variable P2. And then we can output, we're going to return the result. And we're going to, we need to grab the result from each row independently. So that's why we need the result ID, which is stored in P1. Correct. And we just want to grab the task parameter. And as you can see, if I click done, you can see right now we've separated each item independently. And that's all you need to do. And if you have more parameters, you can add more columns doing the same thing. Now that we have created the results and we have them independently saved in separate rows, we can display those rows inside a collection, right? So if we click a add component and go list, we can grab the list from our results. Okay. And let me just delete this text. And if you can see my screen, let's just modify this collection. And we don't need the search bar. And we don't need the actions. And all we need here is the task for the title, nothing for the description. We don't need an image. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And as you can see, it's also showing some empty rows because in our working table, we had up to 5 different results that we could parse. So we're going to only show results that actually have some content in it. And for that, we can use a conditional visibility statement here. Under options, we click add condition, sorry, not there, under filters. So we're going to filter the data and only show data where the task column is not empty. And there you go. We got rid of the empty rows. And now we transform that big blob of text that originally you would get from ChatGPT, into 5 independent items, which now we can manipulate independently. But let's say that I want to save this as each of them as a task to do, right? So how do we do that? Very simple. Let me just, all I need to do is create another table where I can save the tasks, and then I need an action attached to each of the results that allows me to save that specific task into the task table. And we can do that in a couple of minutes because we just add a new table. It's going to be called tasks. All right. And the tasks is going to have, I always like to add a unique ID identifier, which is called row ID. The task is going to have a name, which we can call it, task title, for example. And it's going to have a Boolean column, which is just a way of mark the task, whether it's done or not. So is it done? And it's going to be of type Boolean. Okay, we can put that at the front. And then if we want to, we can save, who these tasks belong to. So we could say author ID. and also when was it created. So created at, and that would be a type of column of date and time. We can make the date format could be short. Okay, so now we have a place where we can save those tasks. I can delete the first one there. The next thing we need to do is add a button to each of the results that allows us to convert each of the results into a task. And this is very easily done in Glide because you can go to actions. So we select the component here and then we go to actions. And in this case, we're going to enable advanced actions because the default actions are to add items, edit items, or delete items. But we want to create a custom action that saves each of the results independently as a task. And to do that, we're going to now go here to add primary action here. Let me just go into white format so you can actually see the button. And we're going to call this add and give it a little icon, a plus icon. And now we can go to the actual action selector, and we're going to create a custom action. Create new action here. And we're going to call this task add. And to add the task, all we have to do is add a new row under the task table. And the task title is going to be the task column from the results table. The author ID is going to be the currently logged in user. In this case, I'm going to use the email as the unique identifier. And created at is going to be the current date and time. And there you go. We just created a couple of minutes a way to save each result independently into a task table. So if I click add, this will be added, but I'm not going to get any feedback, and I don't have a place where to see where I save the task. So very easy. We can create another table, and it's going to be screen from data tasks. There you go. And now under collection, we have all the tasks. And here we can filter them by the currently logged in user, or we can use different ways of filtering the data so we only see the tasks that belong to that user that is logged in. So one way we can do that is if we go to users and I add a new column, a relation column, right? And relations are a way of connecting tables with tables, okay? So if I want to just show the tasks that belong to this user, I create a relation that relates this user's email to the email column under the tasks table, which is in this case the author ID. And because I can have more than one task, I'm going to say match multiple, okay? And then I can go back to the layout. And here under collection, I can use as the source, instead of just the entire table, I can go ahead and go to user profile and just grab the tasks that are my tasks or the currently logged in user tasks. But now there's 0 tasks. So let's try again to add one of these tasks and see if it actually appears under my tasks. And as you can see, it does appear. I want to change this as a checklist. Okay. And I can go here under the settings and under items data. I can change this to maybe created at. So that's my first task, is to learn JavaScript. And I can mark it as done, but for that I have to associate the checked parameter to the is it done column. And now I can mark it as done. And I can go back to my results and do the same thing here. Add and add. Now, this is, as you can see, they've been added. Let me just go back here. And this is pretty much the app. Of course, we can do a lot more. I don't know if you guys want me to do like more, like basically if we go to the existing final app, you can see that when a task is added, I'm showing that the task has been added. Then I can clear all the results if I want to. I can use different OpenAI models There's a lot we can do. We can save the prompt also, so we can dynamically populate it. So there's a lot of things that we can do. I don't know how much time do we want to spend.
We still got a bit of time. So,
okay.
Do you have a preference for where you'd like to go next?
Let me see. It's just maybe we can. Let's just play with the prompt, because one of the most important things of interacting with OpenAI is being able to manipulate the prompt. Sometimes clients, they don't want to deal with the prompt, but I find in most cases they want to be able to tinker with it in order to get the best possible results. And for that, you have to make the prompt available in the app. Of course, it's available through the Glide app editor, but when you deploy the app, it's not available unless you make it available. So in this demo app, I made it available through a settings tab. So you typically, the administrator will have access to a settings tab, and this is a place where you could let your clients customize the prompt. So let's just build the settings app with a place to
yeah,
customize.
This feels like a really nice practical use case.
This happens a lot, right? So up to this point, we built an OpenAI app that you can save the results independently. The next thing is like, how do we manipulate or be able to let our clients change the prompt? Okay, so let me just go back to the actual app. I'm gonna create a new, under OpenAI, we're going to add a new column. Maybe we can use this column actually. We're gonna call this prompt template, okay? And this is where we're going to save the template for our client to be able to edit the prompt, okay? So we go to layout, and now we can add a new screen, and we're gonna call it, I'm just gonna grab it from OpenAI as well, because this is where we're saving our custom prompt. I'm going to delete any of the components here. And now I'm going to add a text entry field. I'm going to map it to my prompt template, which is already mapped. And the next thing I need to do is enter the prompt here. So let me just copy it from here. Let me see where I have it. Here. Okay, I'm just gonna copy it here. And this is gonna be our prompt template. From this moment on, our clients can edit the prompt themselves, right? If you don't want if you only want an administrator to be able to access this is very easily done in Glide. You can set a role under users. There's already by default a role table, right? And you can call it admin, and then you can say only administrators can access that tab. So we could go under visibility conditions, select our tab, and then under options, visibility, we could say that only users whose role is admin can see this, right? So right now, only a user that has the role admin will be able to access settings. So let me actually change the name of the tab into settings. And we can also change the icon so to make it prettier. I usually focus on the looks after the functionality. Otherwise, you end up wasting too much time making things pretty and not making sure the app works properly. So now we have yeah, it's very easy to waste time trying to make things pretty. So there you go. Here, we have a settings app, a tab that is only available for administrators. Now they can change the prompt themselves. But we have to be able to load this into the actual prompt that we're sending to OpenAI. Because right now we're hard coding the prompt in the prompt input. So we need another column. I'm going to call this prompt formatted. And this would be of the type template. And the template is going to be our prompt template column. And here we're replacing this value, 1, with the actual prompt input, okay? And let me just show you what happened here. In the template, we have the default prompt that we're sending, there is a value here, bracket 1 bracket. It could be anything that you want to, that we're replacing with a template computed column with the actual prompt that the user is entering, right? So in this case, you can see that the prompt is list 3 tasks to become a great Glide apps developer. But because we're already saying that on the prompt, we don't have to say that again manually. So now the whoever is using the app doesn't have to say anything about don't enumerate the task or provide only the code. The great thing about using a template is that you can customize it to get results in a way you want to, in a way that is invisible to the user. They don't have to worry about JSON objects and anything related to the format. You can also say, I want this to be very creative or less creative, or provide more or less examples. It's just you can ask them just to focus on asking a simple question or entering a simple prompt, which in this case maybe it's just become a great Glide apps developer, right? And what we, yeah.
Just, an idea that you just prompted was that, no pun intended, is that if you go online, you're going to find a ton of different prompts out there, things that people have put together, these existing prompts for OpenAI and
Yes.
ChatGPT. Imagine having all of those available to you, putting them all in an app and just having them ready to go, and your users can just fill in the blanks. That's the sort of possibility that you have with building solutions like this in Glide.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I've done that with several clients where here you have only one template, but I can easily create another table that is just for templates, and I can have as many templates as I want to, like 50 different templates for different use cases. And you can either select them automatically based on the use case, or you can allow the client to select out of any X amount of templates in order to get whatever results they're looking for, right? So that is really, really, really neat. So now this is going to work exactly as before, because the next thing we need to do is update the action, because now the prompt is going to come from the new column that we created. So under the OpenAI submit action, the actual question shouldn't come from the prompt input, should come from the prompt formatted. Okay, and in this case, we hard-coded 3 different results. So if we ask anything, how to hire a great no-code app developer. Of course, this could be anything, right? No, sorry. This what I did, I wrote it in the wrong place. So let me just go back here. I should have done that under the OpenAI, but luckily I have it here. Let me just get here. We can do this again. Just enter go again, and this should give us a similar result, right? Takes a few seconds. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is create, in this case, actually it gave us the number, but you can use a computed column to just get rid of any data that you don't want to, like the numbers. What I'm going to do now is create another action, and this also is a great example of how easy it is to duplicate an action. Basically, just click duplicate. I go to the action, click the 3 dots, and I'm going to duplicate this action. And I'm going to rename it. And in this case, just to give some context, I'm using the answer type of action for OpenAI. So just so I know, that is one way of interacting with OpenAI. In this case, we're not going to use that. We're going to use a different way of prompting OpenAI. So I just kind of start typing OpenAI, and I could say complete prompt. Now, when you say complete prompt or answer a question about a table, you have a lot more control of how you're prompting, right? You can choose the model, the temperature. Temperature and frequency penalty are just 2 variables that tell OpenAI how random the results are going to be. Typically, for an app like this, you would like to have pretty not too random results, specifically because you're asking OpenAI to return your response in a specific structure, like a JSON object. So Great thing is you can also see here the ranges for each of these variables. So for temperature, typically you want to go low, and the same thing for frequency. And then for maximum, I think you can go up to 48 tokens. But let's say, I don't know, 2,000 tokens. This is how big of the results you want it to be. And we're going to save the result under the OpenAI response. And the actual prompt is going to be here, prompt formatted. And we're using this model, but you should be able to use, as far as I know, GPT, was that 3 Turbo or something like that? Well, let's just leave it like this. But you can use different models, obviously. And the price varies. So it's important that you go to OpenAI, check how much you're going to be charged by token, because those prices obviously are going to vary. But let's just leave it like this and see how the results change. Okay, I'm going to make sure that everything is right. The prompt, model, temperature, frequency, result. Okay. So now we can attach this action. Let me just rename it. It's good to have good naming conventions. Every developer has a different way of naming things. For actions, I always like to name things with the name of the table first, so that way I know which actions are associated with each table. So in this case, OpenAI is the table, and this is going to be the prompt type of custom action to connect with OpenAI. So we can go to layout, and then we go to our button, and instead of the first action, we're going to select the prompt version. And again, I think this is a good practice to try different ways of interacting with OpenAI, because you're going to get different results. So let me just click go, and we should, I imagine, get slightly different results. Let's see what it says. It's thinking. There you go. Very simple results. So maybe this is not useful enough. It's like, okay, it's so basic. This is why sometimes you may want to add some context to it. And the way you can do that is by just changing the prompt. So actually, we have here already a second parameter. So probably we were already, OpenAI was returning that second parameter. It's just that we're not grabbing it. So we have to go to results, and we can duplicate the task column here and call it explanation. And all we have to do is copy and paste that under here, replace that with explanation. And now we're grabbing the explanation that came back from OpenAI as fast as that. And if we go to our results and we go to collections and we go to description, we can grab the explanation. And now we have a little bit more context as to what to do in each of these steps. Learn the basics, practice building apps, stay up to date with Glide. This actually makes a lot of sense. Now, let's say that you want more detailed information. Well, let's just go to the prompt. And now I can pretend I'm the client. It's like, okay, well, this is not enough information. So instead of provide concise results or answers, I want detailed answers. And as simple as this, now I should get more detail, a more detailed response. So let's just go again and send this to OpenAI using the complete prompt, custom action, and let's see what happens. It's thinking. Sometimes I like to put like a little loading or animated GIF here so people know that OpenAI is thinking. And as you can see now, we have a lot more information as to how to complete each of these steps. Of course, you need to read them, make sure they actually make sense, because OpenAI and a lot of these language models are prone to hallucinations. So it's important. Sometimes what I do, as OpenAI does, which is, I think is a good practice, if we go to OpenAI here, it usually says at the bottom, you know, like you may get, actually I cannot read it here. Let me just see what it says. It may produce inaccurate information about people, places, or facts. So what I usually do if I'm using an OpenAI integration in my Glide apps is sometimes I have a little disclaimer to remind people that some of the results may make no sense. So there you go. Now we have different results with more context, and we can add them as well. And once they're added to our task list, we can mark them as completed. And if you want to add the context here that we just added, the explanation, we go to description, and we didn't save them. So again, very easy to change. When we go to task add, we need to add we need to go to our data and make sure we have a place to save the description or the explanation of the app. So we're going to duplicate the task title to task description. And we can go to actions, add, and now we can save the explanation under the task description column. So when we save one of these tasks, let me see the first one that's been added. And if we go now to description, there should be task descriptions. One of them should have the actual description. And I can mark it as done as well. So there you go. That was a way of allowing your clients to modify the prompt that is being sent to OpenAI. So we can leave it as here. We can keep building stuff.
I feel like we could stay on for another several hours and just keep building. Thank you so much, Grumo, for putting this together.
Yeah,
no recap this. I think one of the big things we've learned from this session is that the ability you have with Glide to build these custom interfaces and interactions on top of OpenAI lets you extend the capabilities that you would otherwise not be able to reach unless you were a developer. If you were to go and try to do this stuff otherwise, you would have to get in there, work with the API, write some code, but with Glide, you don't have to. And Grumo showed us how. So thank you so much, Grumo, for taking the time and taking us through this. I have one last question for you before we wrap up here. For all the folks who are new to Glide, what's your biggest piece of advice? What's your pro tip for building in Glide?
To me, it's just if you don't have an account, grab a free account. There's lots of templates that you can get for free already available on the Glide template store, and grab one of the templates, see how it works, or build something from scratch. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube. On my channel, on many other gliders, there's several gliders that are posting on a regular basis that have amazing tutorials, and just learn by building. Definitely, this is how I learn and how I think everybody that is a Glide developer has learned. And like I say, it's fun. I would also, if you have any app that you always wanted to build, why don't you give it a try using Glide? This is also how I got so hooked into it. It's like I wanted to build an app, I remember, for my mom, because she writes poetry and she wanted a place to upload all her poems. Not only that, she wanted to read them and have people listen to her version of the poems. And not only that, she wanted people to upload a version of the read poem as well. And I was able to build that in a couple of days using Glide and give it to my mom as a gift. And it was fun, and it's like a great little side project. And so even if you're not doing this professionally, you can do it just as a side project. And maybe if you get good at it eventually, you can become a Glide developer and start charging to build apps and make a living out of it. So that would be my recommendation.
Love it. Thank you so much, Grumo. And yeah, it becomes a little bit addictive. Once you start playing with Glide, you're going out there and seeing all the things that could be turned into Glide apps, whether you're building apps for yourself, for others, for work. There's so much you can do, and you can start learning and building for free. Just go to glideapps.com. And if you are building and need some help, head over to the Glide community. We got tons of really smart, helpful people in there answering questions and sharing advice. It's community.glideapps.com. Grumo, thanks once again for taking the time. Appreciate you, and thank you everybody for tuning in for this session. We're going to wrap there. Build with Glide. Join future sessions. Head over to glideapps.com/events. We'll see all our upcoming sessions there. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.